Good morning, everyone. I hope all of you have seen and understood the first video on the Patriot. Before we move ahead, let us have a quick recap of the poem till now. In the first three stanzas, the speaker of the poem, that is the Patriot, recalls the grand welcome that he had received a year ago. This poem is a dramatic monologue, and the Patriot is the speaker. He tells us that a year ago, the people welcomed him with roses and myrtles thrown in his path. The people gathered on rooftops to get a glimpse of him, and the church spires were decorated with flags. The bells were ringing, and the people were excited and cheering for the Patriot. The people would have done anything for him at that particular time, but the Patriot didn't let them do anything. Instead, he himself tried to do the impossible things for his people. At the end of third stanza, the poet mourns about how his noble deed has been repaid by the people. Let us look at the fourth stanza. There's nobody on the housetops now, just a palisade few at the window set. For the best of the sight is, all allow, at the shambles gate, or better yet, by the very scaffold's foot I trow. In this stanza, the Patriot speaks about the incident a year later. He comes to the present and makes a contrast. The scene, it shifts from a happy one of the first stanza to the march to the gallows. A year later, he comes to the city, but there are no more people on the rooftops now. There is no one trying to catch a glimpse of the Patriot. The poet says just a palisade few. Just a palisade few means that only those people who could not move, who were paralyzed, who were handicapped, they could not go anywhere. So they sat at the windows to have a look at the same Patriot who was now being led to the gallows. But the rest of the people who had earlier welcomed him and cheered for him were now lined up at the Shambles Gate. Shambles Gate was the gate that led to the place of execution. Why did everyone go there? Because the best of the sight, meaning they would get the best view of the hanging from the Shambles Gate. Or better yet means even a better view was at the scaffold's foot. The scaffold's foot was the exact place where the hanging was to take place. The Patriot says, I trow, means he believes that the people had gathered there just to see the hanging take place. The Patriot's anguish is seen when he taunts the people, saying they will be found not on the roofs, but on the site of the execution. And this is what he truly believes. The fifth stanza. I go in the rain, and more than needs, a rope cuts both my wrists behind, and I think by the feel my forehead bleeds. For they fling, whoever has a mind, stones at me for my year's misdeeds. The imagery here is that of the patriot being led in the rain towards the gallows. The picture being projected in this stanza is very pitiable, one as it is in direct contrast with the imagery of the first and the second stanzas. The patriot is being led to the gallows in the rain. His wrists are tied behind his back with a rope which cuts through his skin. A rope cuts both my wrists behind. And I think by the feel means he could feel blood dripping from his forehead. But he couldn't touch and see because his hands were tied behind his back. He can feel the blood trickling down his forehead, but he is unable to know for sure as his hands are tied. His wounds are a result of the stones that were thrown at him by the people standing along his path. Everybody feels that he has done something wrong. All the people felt that the patriot had done something wrong. So they punish him for his so-called misdeeds of the past year. The poet does not tell us what were the patriot's misdeeds, but yet, ironically seen, the people have completely forgotten the patriot's good deeds. The patriot, he provides an explanation for this transition, saying he is punished for the misdeeds that he has committed within the past 1 year. The sixth stanza, or the last stanza. Thus I entered and thus I go. In triumphs, people have dropped down dead. Paid by the world, what dost thou owe me? God might question. Now instead, 'tis God shall repay. I am safer so. This concluding stanza of the poem begins with the patriot declaring that a year ago, when he had entered his city, he was welcomed as a celebrity. Thus I entered. He was welcomed just like a hero. Now he is leaving this world in great humiliation and insult like a convict. Thus I go. The patriot is heading towards the gallows in the rain with his hands tied behind his back. He is walking through the same streets but in humiliation as a convict. The triumphant hero has fallen. He feels that if he had died a year ago, triumphant, here the poet says that he feels that he should have collapsed because of excess of joy a year ago. He would not then have owed anything to God. But now he has not got any rewards from his countrymen, paid by the world, meaning that he is being punished by the world for his deeds. How? He was being taken to the gallows. He was now going to be hanged. The patriot feels optimistic that he will be rewarded by God in heaven. The thought of that perpetual reward reanimated him. The patriot hopes that since he did not receive his reward in this world from the people, he will be rewarded in the other world from God. The patriot feels safe when he will be in the lap of God. His real repayment will be done by God. He places his trust in God as he knows that he has not committed any moral wrongs. He knows the Almighty is just and fair. Therefore, he is safe with God, as God will not only help him, but he will be justly rewarded for his deeds. Thus, the poem expresses Browning's optimistic philosophy of life. Though the patriot's life is cut short so cruelly in this world, he leaves the world with the hope of fairness in God's justice. Death is not the end of everything. He feels that he will be rewarded by God in heaven. I hope everybody has understood the poem. Coming now to the literary devices. There are quite a few literary devices in this particular poem. The first is alliteration, which is the repetition of the same consonant sound in a line. Few examples are mightle, mixed, my, mad, seemed, sway, flamed, flags, broke, bells, crowd, cries, sun, skies. If we notice, the underlined consonant has been given to you. The next is metaphor. A metaphor is symbolic of something, or it is a comparison where we do not use as or like. The church spires flamed, just like the flags. You see my harvest, what I reap. The harvest has been compared to the reward that he has got. A simile, which is a comparison using the words as or like. With mightle mixed in my path like mad. Hyperbole. This is an exaggeration in the poem. With mightle mixed in my path like mad. But give me your sun from yonder skies. Alack, it was I who leaped at the sun. Personification, presented as living beings, the rooftops which seem to heave and sway. Irony, the contrast between the past and the present. It is ironical that when the patriot is going to die, he feels safe. He's not at all afraid. Why? Because he feels that God will repay him. Therefore, he says, I am safer so. Juxtaposition. The fact of two things being seen or placed close together with contrasting effect. The image projecting in the beginning of the poem is juxtaposed with the current scenario, meaning the first three stanzas were a year ago in comparison to the next three stanzas which come back to the present. The rooftops, which were swaying with people in the first stanza, they are empty in the fourth stanza, which shows how the patriot went on from being loved to being hated by the people. There are various symbols in this particular poem. The roses symbolize the welcome, the honor, the passion with which the patriot was welcomed. Similarly, myrtle symbolize purity, love, innocence, and generosity. The path was his political career. The spires are the hopeful gestures and the strength. Sun symbolizes something which is unreachable or beyond access. The palisade indicated annoyance, suffering of the people. Rope deals with the confinement or the restriction. Rain symbolizes loss, death, tears, sadness, and despair. Now, coming to the theme of this particular poem, rise or fall of one's fortune. The people who one day lift the patriot to the skies also pull him down to the dust. The patriot is first hero worshipped, but at the end of the poem, we see people throwing stones at him and humiliating him. This shows that glory and fortune do not last forever. Fickle-mindedness of the people. The people are fickle-minded and they change their opinion without a second thought. Ordinary people are not steadfast in their opinions. They are whimsical. They gave the patriot a warm welcome and were ready to do anything for him a year ago. But a year later, the patriot's good deeds, they are forgotten and they hurl stones at him. Someone who is loved today may easily be hated tomorrow. And the third theme is the spirit of optimism, which is seen in the last stanza. The patriot tried to achieve the impossible for the pleasure of the people. He was welcomed as a hero, but his misdeeds turn him into a criminal into the eyes of the people just a year later. He feels betrayed and abandoned, but even in the hour of defeat and sorrow, he achieves a moral victory. He feels that he has not been rewarded for his services on the earth. Had he been rewarded, God would not have cared for him. But now, betrayed and deserted by the people, he hopes to be rewarded by God in heaven. Trust in God and the hope of justice in the hands of God raises the spirit of the patriot and brings about a spirit of optimism at the end. We have an assignment for you at the end. Please read the extract, refer to the poem, and answer these questions in your literature notebooks or on loose sheets to be attached in a file. I hope you have understood the poem. Thank you and stay safe.